the kind of the prevailing story coming out of the draft is, well, they didn't draft any offensive linemen. But then, I've been spending the last few days digging deep on all the guys they've added. And they've added some really kind of intriguing guys. Dominic Puny from Kansas looks like he might be able to come in and start at right guard. He definitely is versatile. He's tough. He's athletic. He wanted to be a Niner. Then I saw the interview with Jarrett Kingston, who I didn't really like that pick. But, I saw the interview that he did. He's incredibly strong. He's kind of a short arm guy. He might be a center or a guard, but there's some likable traits there with Kingston, who transferred, I think, from Wazoo to SC because his mom loved SC. But he's intriguing because he's really strong, 36 reps on the bench, and, he's got some decent film. Then there's Drake Nugent, who was a really good player at Stanford, who transferred to Michigan, was first team all Big Ten, and was Stanford's captain. And he's kind of a tough guy, even though he's a bit short at 6'1", but at center, that doesn't bother me that much. And then they also got Bryson Mays from Southern Miss, who is another guy. Really, he's got some great measurables, really athletic. They didn't get a blue chip guy necessarily. I guess maybe you could call Puny that, but they didn't get a round one guy, but they did add 4 offensive linemen that have traits. And to me, it's going to be interesting to see. We kind of know it's going to be Trent Williams, Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, probably Feliciano and McKivitz on the right side. And then they have their backups. They like Ben Barch. They've stated here they like Jalen Moore as their swing tackle. There's Spencer Burford. There's Corey Luciano. They brought in Brandon Parker from the Raiders. And they still have Nick Sakel, who's, Purdy's buddy, and we'll see if he plays center or guard or what. But they brought in 4 different prospects that all in this draft, either during or after, that, none of them are tackles. So that frustrates a lot of people, but they all look like they're pretty athletic and pretty intriguing prospects. What do you think? Did the Niners blow it by not going for a tackle in this draft, or did they just not have a pick where where the tackles were and they played it the way they needed to play it? I mean, how do you see how do you look at their offensive line right now?
Well, I don't think they ultimately had the pick. I mean, I was not. I know a lot of people wanted them to draft Suma Kingsley,
right?
Sumataya. I didn't.
Suma Itea or Teia.
I'm missing a vowel in there. I know, but that felt like too much of a project. Let me read to you. I texted a buddy of mine who coached at Kansas. Now he's coaching somewhere else, but coached at Kansas the last several years.
Yeah.
And to ask him about Puny. And this is what he said. He was rock solid for us, projects interior, really good feet, and athletic for his measurables, smart, really understands the game, good job in pass pro. Biggest knock would be creating movement and recreating the line of scrimmage in the run game. Just wasn't asked to do that a lot in our scheme because we didn't have guys around him to consistently impose our will on people in the run game. So that was from a Kansas coach. Said more stuff about him as a guy that he really liked. So what do you make? What do you think of that scouting report I just gave you?
Well, I mean, I kind of like what I've seen from him in that he does have good feet. He seems like he likes to get after it. He seems like a guy who really wants to, punish the defensive lineman who's opposite him. I think that there's traits there with toughness and athleticism that I like, but I also see that he's going to need some time with Chris Forster. I mean, they're going to need to coach him up and get him better. I don't know that he's a plug and play guy. To me, he might be like week 10 or something like that. They plug him in at right guard. I don't see him being like, day one, Feliciano Burford, sit down, Puny's here. You know what I mean? But I do think he could be a long-time starter on this line.
The other one was everyone wanted Rosengarten. And I had no problem with them not moving for Rosengarten.
I don't either, because I saw Rosengarten just get absolutely destroyed by the Wolverines in the second half of the Natty, and I was like, I don't know. That's so fresh in my mind. I just thought I liked Rosengarten like in round 4, but he was just these tackles get way overdrafted.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, watching Mays is explosive, and I've had people tell me that they really feel like Nugent is a much better player. Now, I saw Michael Hall in the Ohio State game just turn him into a turnstile. You know what I mean? It was just like the speed of Michael Hall was way too much for Drake Nugent in that game. But that's Michael Hall, who ran 4.76 and was the fastest defensive tackle in the draft. Not every, I like Nugent's strength more than I like Jake Brendel's strength. So that could be a factor, trying to stonewall those huge bodied defensive tackles that, DJ Reader made Brendel look pretty bad last year. Chris Jones you're going to have to eventually block Chris Jones if you want a ring. So I don't know. I mean, I like the accountability, the smarts, and the toughness of Nugent. I'm wondering if he has the feet and the quickness to be able to defend the quicker interior guys.
I'm with you on Kingston. It's a 6th round pick. So, USC's offensive line was kind of like USC's defense when the Niners drafted Drake Jackson, just all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Their offensive line has been all over the place, was all over the place last year. Injuries, guys moving positions. So maybe it's hard to give a full, fair eval of a guy, but the team that he played for at Washington State was a more physical-ish team than Washington State under Mike Leach on offense. So, I mean, I know he walked in his graduation at Wazoo and senior day. I think they thought he was going pro, and then he went to SC. So yeah, I think one thing is clear with the Niners is they're okay with their offensive line, right? I know there's a lot of this discussion of the Niners like their offensive line more than the public likes their offensive line. And even though I wouldn't want to see a guard rotation 3 years in a row. I do understand it if you're them. You go, hey, we got to the Super Bowl with this offensive line. We had Ricky Pearsall. We had Jacob Cowing. We're just going to get Brock makes quick decisions. We'll get the ball out of his hands. We'll keep teams off balance with the run game. I don't want to feed into a stereotype, but Kyle does kind of think this is good enough for me. I can help them with the way I call plays and with the weapons we have. So, to me, Puny is the guy that I think we could see the soonest. I'd be surprised if Jarrett Kingston ever, starts a game for the 49ers.